All right, video time. So, my name is Cougar. On this channel, I talk about global heating a lot. Yesterday, I talked about what was the title? My original title was "No Fuel, No Food," and I think I changed it to something else because I didn't think that was obvious enough for a title. But anyway, the theme was: if you don't have fuel, you don't have food. I was really just talking about the physics of where your food comes from and how that intersects with fossil fuels, which it does. And TLDR version of that talk, without fossil fuels, there's no food on the shelves. I didn't say what you should do about that, other than you might want to have some locally produced food. Backyard garden is not a bad idea. You still have time to do that. And it's a skill you probably need to have anyway, going forward. If this isn't the big collapse that causes the supermarket shelves to be completely empty and therefore everyone's terrified and shaking in their boots, well, then the next one will be. So if it bothers you that you might have to grow your own food, you think that's it's communism, or that's the fall of civilization, or it's un-American, or it's undignified, or it's uncivilized, or whatever your excuse is, that's fine. That's fine, because that just means that you'll be fighting for food. And that's your choice. Or you can grow your own food. Or even better still, you can grow food in a community. This video is going to make a slightly different case. Yes, we have to anticipate no fossil fuels. That's going to impact food chains. However, it's going to impact some food chains sooner and more consequentially than some others. And this is where we introduce the topic of veganism. Now, for a lot of veganism means that you don't. It's like being vegetarian. Vegetarian probably came first. Vegetarian means you don't eat meat, but you may allow yourself to eat eggs and dairy because they're not meat. Veganism means you don't eat any meat or any products that come from animals. And there's lots of reasons to do this, and I'll just mention a couple quickly, just to level set. And then I'm going to skip those completely. I'm going to mention the predominant rationale that people give for being vegan, and then I'm just going to completely ignore those, because while those are good reasons and they certainly apply, in short order, none of that shit's going to matter. But let me mention the stuff that people think is important, which is important, but shortly it's not going to be important. Why would you want to be vegan? Well, to be honest, if you knew how your meat or meat-derived, animal-derived products were grown, husbanded, whatever you want to call it, raised, and then how they were butchered, and how they were processed, and how they were packaged, and how they were handled, and how they were shipped, and how they were stored, and all these other things, it would probably make you vomit. It's a well-known secret that the animal husbandry industry, and it is an industry, is filthy. It's cruel. It is indifferent. The amount of suffering that happens to cattle and pigs and chickens, it's worse than anything you think happened in Gaza. It's worse than anything you think is happening in Iran. Yep, schools full of children being bombed by Tomahawk cruise missiles. Okay, that's horrendous. And yet, at the same time that's going on, unbeknownst to people, because again, this is the hidden fact that everyone knows but doesn't think about. There's millions of heads of cattle, billions of chickens that live lives that are post-apocalyptic hellscapes. Crowded together, injected with antibiotics, fed antibiotics in every meal. When they die, they're basically thrown in the chipper. If they're the wrong gender, if chicks are the wrong gender, they get thrown into the chipper. turned into basically fertilizer. I don't even know what they do with the animal parts that get thrown into the wood chipper alive. It's absolutely horrific. And that's the industrialized side. There are alternatives to industrialized meat production. Free-range chickens, grass-fed beef, pastured beef, things like that. When I was growing up, we kept a. It was not a cow, but it wasn't a. We kept a steer. I think that's what it's called. A male cow that was not used for breeding, so it wasn't a bull. It was actually castrated. There you go. It already starts, right? We kept a steer, and we called him Reggie. And we all loved Reggie, and we fed Reggie, and we watered Reggie, and we took care of Reggie. But the point of Reggie was that he was going to be slaughtered, and we were going to eat him. And I don't know, maybe my parents wanted us to know the full cycle of the meat and how all that happened. And I remember we were fairly young. I wasn't that young. I was probably 20 at the time, and my brother and sister were quite a bit younger. We were old enough, certainly, to witness the cycle of food production. And so, Reggie came back and wrapped in, the paper, the white paper, and we ate the animal from the white paper. And, when you see it, even that was fairly benign. We had our one cow, and the cow had a pasture, and the cow lived with a horse, and the cow had some company, and then one day the steer, disappeared. And when you see all that happen end to end, you know something. Okay, you know something. And that was about as benign an experience as an animal can have. That's about as good as it gets when your destiny is to be eaten. What was it? It was a book, and then it was a movie, Charlotte's Web, right? And the big story was that all the other barnyard animals knew what their role was. The horse had his place in the hierarchy, and then the sheep, they gave wool, and the goats gave milk, and everybody, and the chickens, and the duck and the geese, and they all knew their place, and they all knew they had a role to play in the farm, and everyone knew what the role of the pig was. And he was teased about that you're going to be eaten. And even the farmer's wife would come out and look at the little pig and say, well, he's fattening up nicely. And, and Wilbur the pig didn't know what to make of that. And Charlotte, the spider, set out to save him from that fate. Oh, and it worked. So, and there was a little girl involved. I think part of the story is that she didn't know what was going to happen to Wilbur, that this was being kept from her. I say all this because this is the kind of thing that's trotted out. That's why you should be vegan. You shouldn't be eating animals, and that includes eggs and dairy and milk, because even those animals suffer to a degree. The animals should be free. They should not be crowded into pens and given antibiotics routinely and separated from their offspring and all these other things. So then those are good reasons to be vegan, because you don't want to participate in a hellscape. You don't want to be adjacent to it. You don't want to be at the output end of it. You don't want to be at the input end of it. You don't want to be managing these animals. You don't want to be anywhere near this, because it's not healthy. And it's not healthy for the environment. These feedlots where cattle are kept, and complain that I don't know anything about it, whatever. I've driven by a lot of feedlots, okay, where these animals are kept and basically finished. They're given a special diet to prepare them for slaughter, to put on as much fat as possible, basically. It's the finishing step. Kept in feedlots, crowded, they're ankle deep in their own manure, and they're crowded and they're stressed and they're sick, and they're given antibiotics constantly to keep them from getting infections from the stress and all the disease in the environment. And it'll kind of turn your stomach. It really will. Now, if you're in that business and you're making money and you're looking at every cow and you're thinking, wow, that steer, that's $3,000 on the hoof, standing right there. Well, then maybe you can walk away and feel pretty good about yourself. But to anybody else, including the people who are going to eat this meat, if they kind of knew what was going on, they might not feel so good about it. I mean, they'll eat the meat still, but There's a reason why all this stuff is kept hidden. There's a reason why we don't discuss these things. There's a reason why these feedlots and all this cattle stuff is kept thousands of miles away from cities and thousands of miles away from suburbs and schools full of children, okay? There's a reason. Because it's a secret. It's a well-known secret. Everyone knows where the food comes from, but it's still a secret. Everyone's complicit, essentially. And it is a hellscape, and it's not good. It just is, folks. And you can say, well, but it's more like making money in these communities, and they need the income, and people need the meat, and blah, blah, blah. And there's arguments on all sides, but I'm just telling you how it is. Another reason you may want to be vegan, which frequently is trotted out at this point, is it's better for you. It's healthier. And that's probably true. There are studies all the time about what happens if you eat too much animal fat or even too much animal protein. That while the humans are probably omnivores evolutionarily, and we definitely have the stomach acids to prove that, we now have access to types of meat products that we would not have had when we were hunter-gatherers. You might go hunting for 3-4 days or a week. Of course, they didn't have weeks back then, right? But 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 solar cycles, whatever they wanted to call them back then, before you brought home any meat. And then, you would eat that for a few days, and then you'd have to get rid of it, and then you'd go hunting again in a few days, and maybe you'd be another week before you had another kill that you could drag back. And even when you were doing it that way, you were having to work hard for it, and it was dangerous. Now, these animals have horns for a reason. Even though they don't have horns in the feedlot, when they're out in nature, they do. And they know how to use them. So this was dangerous work. You worked hard for it. Sometimes you brought home meat, and sometimes you ate. And when you did eat, it wasn't meat that was finished in a feedlot with soybeans and oats and artificial foods. Oh, God, they even feed cattle other animals. I forgot about that. They feed cattle other animals. Anyway. The animal you would catch in the wild wouldn't be that animal. Bred to be fat, bred to be marbled, bred to have fat all through the meat. It would be lean, it would be tough, it would be gamey, and you'd eat it and you'd chew it for half an hour just to get it soft enough to swallow. Fire was a huge invention. Cooking food, cooking meat meant it was softer to eat, and so that was a huge thing for people. We found other uses for fire later, but probably the initial use was cooking food most of the time. So back then, when we were evolving as Homo sapiens, 100,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, the meat we ate had no relationship to what we're eating now. And then the third reason is environmental. That I've already alluded to this, that the places where these animals are kept and raised and finished, and even the slaughtering process, the amount of water that's used, the kind of things that go into the water, all this, it's a massive environmental problem. There was, I want to say about 10 years ago, there was a pork production area in Georgia, I think, and they were keeping the pig shit. I don't know how else to say it. Pig shit. They were keeping the pig shit in a big pond that they made. It was technically it was a cofferdam. So they piled up dirt across a valley. And then as they washed out the pigsties and washed the pigs themselves, and who knows what else went into that, behind that cofferdam. And it was just a lake, a big pond of just pig shit. And it was kept back with a earthen dam. And that facility had been cited for unsafe conditions, for pollution, for a bunch of other things. And then one day, and they didn't know what to do with the pig shit. Okay, there it was. They're not going to do anything with it. They're not going to haul it off in trucks and take it to a landfill or something like that. And one day, a big storm came in, and it rained really hard, and it filled up the pond, and then the dam broke, and then all the pig shit ran over the dam. So whereas they probably would have liked to have gotten rid of the pig shit like constantly every day and let it go into the river, they weren't allowed to do that because of permits. So instead, they just stored it in this artificial reservoir behind an earthen dam and just basically crossed their arms and waited for the day when the dam failed. which it did do. And then when the dam failed, it all got washed into the river. And from the river, it went to the sea. And, it was an absolute environmental disaster. And then they built the dam back and they started filling it with pig shit again. And this is how it happens, folks. All the goddamn time. And these meat processing plants, they wash after a day of slaughtering animals, and there's guts and feathers and blood and all this other stuff all over the place, and stomach contents and everything else they had to get rid of. They just spray it down with a big fire hose. Just spray it down with a fire hose, and all this stuff goes out of the factory floor and into a little cofferdam, or maybe a local stream. Who even knows, right? Is this even regulated? Who knows? Who cares, right? And then the meat shows up in the market, and you eat the meat, and you never had to see any of that, because it's, like I said, it's a big secret. I mean, it's known. It's a huge industry. People know what goes on in the industry, but for everybody else, it has to be a secret. Unless you are in these areas watching how this happens, unless you work in these plants. Oh, and by the way, the only people that can get to work in these plants, and there's beef plants, pork plants, chicken, all this, dairy. And only people who will work in these factories are immigrants, mostly Mexicans, and a lot of them are women, because it's not a lot of hard labor. It's dangerous, by the way, but it's not heavy labor. Packaging meats or cutting up meat using a saw. There's a lot of immigrant labor in this stuff, and the animal husbandry industry. It's hard not to call it animal manufacturing, because that's kind of what it is. They love this immigrant labor because the local white people, the farmers, their children, their neighbors, while they like having the industry in the community, they don't want to work in these places. So they don't, because it's gross. It's terrible. It'll make you sick. Having to smell the burnt feathers and having to smell the crap on the floor, having to walk through animal blood and animal parts. And yes, isn't it sickening? Okay, so we've got 3 reasons you might want to be vegan. Oh, and I'm going to sweep all this under the rug, because I don't care about any of this. For my purposes, yeah, these are 3 good reasons, but they're not good enough. I'm just going to sweep these under the rug and never talk about them again. I will now label them before I dispense with them entirely. It's a hellscape. How we handle animals industrially is a hellscape of suffering. It's bad for us to eat so much of this kind of food. When we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't eat this kind of food. Now we eat as much of it as we want. We don't even have to go hunting. There's no horns. There's no fangs. There's no hooves. They say these animals don't fight for themselves. We don't fight them to get their meat. You just go down to the supermarket, and your big belly and all your body fat and all your sclerotic arteries, and you go down to the supermarket and you just pick up a big package of ribs, and these are ribs, aren't they? I know what these are. And then you go and you pay for them, and you take them home and you slather them with the barbecue sauce, and you throw them in the oven, and they cook, and they come out, and the grease is just dripping off of them, and you're like, yeah. Okay, maybe I'm overstating it a little bit, but not really. I mean, that's how people do it now. You're not Thag the hunter. You're not hunting for shit. Thag knew what he was doing. Thag worked hard. And when he got ribs, there was barely any meat on them and no fat of any kind, and he was happy to have it. But today, this is not hunting. This is not gathering. And there's nothing noble about this, okay? Nothing. Nowhere close to being the manly man hunter, all right? Nowhere close. And it'll just be not good for you, okay? It's an environmental hazard. Now, let's sweep all that aside. That's what you'll hear if you go on YouTube and find somebody talking about extolling the virtues of veganism and how the hellscape and the environmental damage and it's bad for your arteries and all this kind of thing. You'll just laugh and you'll eat your ribs. You'll watch the vegan, that skinny soy boy. Okay? Let's just forget that now. You're not going to have it. You're going to go down to the store, and the first place you're going to go is to the meat rack, and you're going to find 3 steaks in the little tray with the cellophane, and the price is going to be $75. Because what it is. That's now the going price. And that was before they took away our fuels, because that's what they're doing right now. They're taking away the fuels. The Straits of Hormuz are closed. Diesel is already becoming a problem. Not, it's a cost problem now, but it will be an availability problem in a couple of weeks if they don't get this shit figured out, right? And so, steaks, $75 for 3. Then it'll be steaks, $150 for 3. And then they won't be there. They won't be there. And people will be angry, and they'll go to the checkout desk, and they'll bang on the counter. Where is the meat? I came here for meat. Where's the meat? And they say, well, we didn't get any. And we got some, but you were too late. Other people swooped in and bought it up. And boy, you should have seen the prices. And people complained about the price, but they bought it, and they swiped their credit card, and they left in a hurry. And you came too late, and well, when are you going to get some more? Well, we don't know. We actually don't know. The guy that delivered the stuff said the warehouse is empty because their usual shipment hasn't showed up in a long time, and there's signs that they're having to cull the herds. Why are they culling the herds? Why are they killing the animals? Why are the animals going away? Well, because the price of feed has gone through the roof, and they can't afford it. You don't have enough money to buy the feed for the animals, so they're having to kill the animals. And that's going to be the story. That's going to be the story. The story is not going to be, well, there's a hellscape out there and we decided to stop doing that. That's not going to be the story. The story is going to be, we would love to bring you beef and pork and chicken. We would love to cut these animals up and put them in little bags and bring them down here for you to scarf on. But we can't do it because there's no fuel, or the fuel is too expensive. It just doesn't happen. Now, my last video was basically no fuel means no food. And I meant that. And the reason why no fuel means no food is because your food doesn't come from your local area. All your food is grown, harvested, raised, butchered, processed, packaged, and then thrown into trucks, and it's all thousands of miles away. None of that happens in your neighborhood. Part of it because the butchering part, the raising of the animals, and then the butchering part is a secret. They don't want you to know. I mean, if you think about it, but you don't know, and it's not in your face either. So it's thousands of miles away, or it's in another country. And because it's an environmental hazard, it's thousands of miles away or in another country that doesn't have environmental regulations. That's how this works. It's a secret because of the harm done both to the animals and to the environment. So it's 1,000 miles away. In some rural backwoods podunk county where there's no one living there and no one raises a ruckus and they're happy to have the work. Even if their work is just driving the truck that takes the cattle or the pigs or the chickens in and brings out the products out. And then they drive it off to some distributor and they're just in a truck all day, going back and forth, and they never have to go inside because the people inside the factory, ankle deep in blood and cow shit, are the immigrant labor. Without fossil fuels in every single step of that process, which is a hellscape, which is harmful to the environment, but set that aside, every single step through that process requires constant application of cheap and available fossil fuels. There you go. And we are going into an era, this afternoon, where fossil fuel availability is going to be sketchy. In particular, diesel seems to be a problem for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. Why has it turned out to be diesel? That's suddenly a big problem. I don't know. Oh, and aviation fuel. That's another one. Why aviation fuel? Why diesel? Okay, I'll tell you something about those two. They are used for transportation of goods all over the planet, including meat. Now, we here in the U.S., we get meat from all over the world. There's a lot of pork and beef in Brazil that makes its way here. Oh, there's a lot of beef in Mexico that makes its way here. We have huge feedlots all over the country, but those feedlots are thousands of miles away from their big markets, like Los Angeles, for example, Los Angeles or New York, and they're in the Midwest, and so transportation back and forth and back and forth. The same in places like the UK or parts of Europe. Once again, they don't have room to run all these animals. They have some animals, that's fine, but they don't have enough to meet their perceived needs. So they're going to be getting a lot of their meat from all over the planet. So what is happening with the meat? You don't know where this stuff is coming from half the time. They don't want you to know. But it's coming from somewhere, and it's not coming from down the street, because you know that for a fact. If you ever stop to think about it, you know it's not coming from there. So no fuel means no food. If there's ever an interruption in diesel and aviation fuel, by the way, because a lot of food gets transported from one country to the next in cargo planes. So without copious, inexpensive, abundantly available diesel and aviation fuel, your food supply is in imminent threat. It could be interrupted at any time. The part that's most likely to be interrupted is exactly the meat. It's all transported. The butchering and the packaging and in some cases, the further processing, like they do with some chicken, for example, is highly energy intensive. They need a lot of electricity, a lot of water, and then they need a lot of fossil fuels, mostly diesel. Although they probably use a lot of natural gas if they're cooking things. These are prepared foods. They're cooking things, or they're having to keep facilities warm, or whatever they're doing. That's probably natural gas. So there's fossil fuel throughout this entire process. And when the truck backs up to the warehouse to load up all the beef, all the steaks and all the hamburger and everything else, that truck is running on diesel. And that truck may have to go 2,000 miles to deliver that quantity of food to whoever it was that bought it. And all of this is just in time. None of this is stored anywhere. It's butchered at the factory. It's put in a refrigerated truck that day, and then that refrigerated truck, same day, is on the road. And then he drives all night. But he's not supposed to, but he does. He drives all night to get to his destination, where it comes out of the refrigerated truck into a local, refrigerated warehouse or large-scale freezer. And from there, immediately, next day, day after that, it goes out to the supermarket shelves. All of this is just in time. You don't store meat. No one stores anything anymore. All the logistics are just in time. Just like I said in the last video. That applies to everything. I said it applies to all your food, and it does. And that includes the meat. And the meat especially. Because storing meat is not like storing flour. You can store flour on a shelf. You can store flour in a warehouse on a shelf. You can't really do that with meat. It'll go bad. And if it doesn't go bad, it's because you're pumping huge amounts of energy, electricity probably, into cooling, keeping cold, if not frozen, some warehouse somewhere. That's a big undertaking. So they don't want it around. They want to move it. They want to ship it. And so it's all just in time. And the meat that you have on the shelf today at your grocery store, right? Whatever it is, a tray full of ribs or chicken thighs or whatever it is, may have been a living animal a week ago. And everything is just in time. In an era of fossil fuels, we were able to develop all of these just-in-time supply chains, including food. They're called warehouses on wheels. They're called warehouses on wheels because these trucks are like a warehouse, a tiny little piece of a warehouse. Everything goes from final finishing, meaning packaging or whatever, maybe it gets lightly cooked, if it's prepared food, to the final destination in a matter of days. Warehouse on wheels. This is so vulnerable to interruptions in the fuel supply that it's almost impossible to comprehend. We don't need a failure of the agriculture industry to not have food on the shelves. We don't need a complete failure of the herds. The beef cattle, the pigs in their sties, the chickens in their pens. We don't need a complete failure of that to not have those things. We simply need there to not be any fuel. And no fuel can happen overnight, nor over a couple of days. And then it's done. And then what do they do with those products? What do they do with those animals? I have no idea. I have no idea. Because there's no warehouse. Now maybe they keep the animals alive and they keep feeding them, but eventually if there's no place for the meat products to go, they slaughter them? What do they do? I don't even know. That they wait for things to get better, but what if it takes 2 or 3 months for things to get better? I just was watching Sal Mercogliano on his What's Going On with Shipping channel, and he was saying he was being pretty emphatic. He was like, I don't care what you people's politics are, what you feel about Iran or anything else, but I'm a mariner, and I'm telling you, 30 days of interruptions in the Straits of Hormuz leads to 30 weeks of repairs and fixing the supply chains. 30 weeks, not 30 days. It's not one for one. 30 days of interruptions in fuel supplies lead to 30 days of correcting the problems with fuel supplies. That's not how it works. 30 days is 30 weeks. So these animal product manufacturers could have months where they can't move product. And then there's this. Global heating is a thing. Global heating is real. Global heating is physics. You may not like it. You may not believe it. You may want Donald Trump or Starmer or Macron or someone else to tell you an adult fairy tale about how you have nothing to worry about from global heating. But global heating is physics and global heating is real. And because of global heating, we have to stop burning fossil fuels. Full stop. That's it. That's the answer. So when they do that, there goes your just-in-time supply chains for everything, for medications, for finished products, clothing, all of it. Yeah, eyeglasses from Amazon, everything. Without constant applications of fossil fuels, there's no manufacturing. And there's no driving, and there's no flying, and there's no moving of goods, and there's no movement of money, and there's no jobs. Without constant application of cheap, available fossil fuels, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time, everywhere, always on, all the time, then we can't have this, all this, and this, and this, and all the rest of it, whatever. This coffee, where did the coffee come from? Colombia? Forget it. You've drank your last cup of coffee when they turn off the fossil fuels. Not a joke. Not a joke. They're going to have to deal with this. And just let me point out that if they choose not to deal with this, then there's going to be problems in the meat industry with the cattle and the pork and the chickens. Those animals are going to die. Humans are also going to die. But humans at least can get into a home, a small habitat, or a cooling center. And they can turn on the air conditioning and they can huddle and try not to die of the heat, right? But no one's going to do that for the animals. The animals, the beef, probably the pigs too, are stored outdoors. And no one's going to turn on the air conditioning for these animals. And these industries, as soon as the first big heat wave hits, which could be this summer, I've already said that. Other videos. Check my back catalog, okay? This summer is going to be a heat wave. You won't hear about this. They won't televise it. They will let you know. It'll be another of the well-known secrets. The animals are dead. The animals are dead. How'd the animals die? Wait, what? They died in the heat. The heat? What do you mean the heat? Well, where do you think the animals are kept? They're kept outside in the sun, in the heat. No! The meat is at the supermarket. Well, how do you think it got there? There are living creatures involved in this process, and they can die in the heat, just like you, just like me, just like the old senior living alone next door. They can die in the heat, and because of how we manage our animals for industrialized animal husbandry, they will die by the millions, by the tens of millions, by the hundreds of millions. And then, of course, piles of animals. What do? They burn them, I guess. They set fire to them. And it'll be like the plague in 14th century Europe, where they just pile the bodies up and just keep throwing new bodies onto the flames, and they just burn them all. Every day they're burning thousands of animals because they died in the heat. And it'll be all the animals. And we'll lose a lot of people too. Don't kid yourself. We'll lose a lot of people too. And there'll be all these stories about the people that died, and the shut-ins, and the disabled, and the people with chronic illnesses. There'll be all these stories about how all these people died. And in the end, it'll be the animals too. And you're going to go to the supermarket. There's not going to be any meat on the shelves of any kind. Hardly anything at all. And when there isn't, you're going to have to eat something else. And when there isn't any meat on the shelves, including dairy, because the cows will die, the dairy cows will die, and there won't be eggs because all the chickens died. Not just the chickens we cut up for parts, but also the chickens that are used for laying eggs. All the chickens died, so there's no dairy, there's no cheese, there's no milk, and there's no fresh milk, and there's no fresh eggs, and there's no fresh cheese, and it's all gone. Because the animals all died in the heat. That's how it's going to be. Because the heat's going to kill everything that's alive that's above ground or not in a cooling shelter. That's how it is in hothouse Earth. And on that day, when your face is turned white with the understanding of what has just happened, when the grocer tells you, I keep hearing that the herds have been decimated, that the herds are gone. When you hear on the TV that there's no meat production anywhere in the country, and when you see all this happening, you're going to get angry, and you're going to think it's a conspiracy, and you're going to think it's a hoax, and you're going to think it's price gouging, and it's something else, and it's tinfoil hats, and it's all this stuff. But no, it isn't. It's physics. It's fucking physics. And now you're vegan. And what in your long and illustrious life, and eating what you want to eat, whenever you want to eat it, and ribs full of fat and dripping grease and barbecue sauce and snarf, what in that life ever prepared you for suddenly becoming vegan? Because at that point, you will be. And it won't even be your choice. You won't even have thought about it. You won't have cared about the animal suffering and the environmental hazards and the risk to your own health. None of that stuff will even come up in your suddenly becoming, for the rest of your life, a vegan. But you'll be vegan. And you'll be looking for food. Because the same supermarket that hasn't had beef or pork or chicken or eggs or milk or cheese or anything else, butter, right? None of that stuff, because it's all just in time. It all disappears at the same time because the trucks aren't running and the producers aren't producing and the refrigerated trucks are being used as morgues for human bodies, and all these kind of things are happening. And so it all disappears at the same time, and now you have to find food. What are you going to eat? That's a good question. The reason to become vegan now. Sure, you don't want to participate in the animal suffering. That's a good reason. If you saw what was happening in these feedlots and in these pork operations, in these chicken operations, you'd probably puke, okay? You'd probably come away dizzy-headed and spots before your eyes and needing to vomit, okay? If you knew the well-known secret. Doesn't mean you stop eating meat, but you would at least know. Or if you suddenly had a heart attack and the doctor told you you've got too much plaque in your arteries, you need to stop eating meat and dairy or you're going to die a lot sooner than maybe you should. Okay, maybe that turns you. Maybe it doesn't. Probably it wouldn't. And if you could see the environmental damage when that pond of pig shit broke. Oh, what was me? We broke the dam finally? Oh, how sad. Well, at least now we don't have to worry about what to do with that, 1 million acre feet of pig shit. Okay, well, if you saw that going down the river, past the homes, past the little cities and towns, and out to the ocean and down into the ocean and spreading out like a big oily brown shit diarrhea into the toilet of the ocean, maybe that would make you vegan, but probably it wouldn't. But on the day On that special day, that day that will live in infamy, the day we will never forget, the day when the delivery trucks didn't deliver. On that day, you'll be vegan. Again, you'll complain and you'll storm the Capitol and you'll demand changes and my rights and my Second Amendment and my everything else. And it's a conspiracy and it's communism and it's socialism and it's woke and it's all these things. No, no. The animals died in the heat. They just died. They're dead. Yeah. Now maybe they'll come back. But oh wait, this is global heating. And when does that stop? Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Let me check my watch. I have a calendar app here. Never. According to my calendar app, global heating ends never. It only gets worse. And it gets worse for 100 years. And then it hangs around for thousands of years until the CO2 finally leaches out of the atmosphere. Oh, and meanwhile, let's not forget, 90% of that heat is collecting in the oceans. The oceans fucking die. Dead oceans. Dead. Whales floating belly up all over the place. Dead. Dead seals, dead gulls, dead everything. Dead starfish, dead sea urchins. Okay, the sea urchins might do okay. Oh, and the jellyfish. We expect the jellyfish to be fine. And sometimes you can eat jellyfish too. But there'll be jellyfish in a soup of death, just sewer. You won't even be able to be near when the oceans die. You won't even be able to be within 10 miles of the ocean without accidentally dying from the hydrogen sulfide coming off the water, from all the rot and decay of the dead ocean. If you're anywhere near the beach, you'll be able to smell it, and then you won't be able to smell it because it deadens your nerves in your nose. It puts them to sleep, essentially. H2S does that. It's like an anesthetic. So you'll be able to smell it. Oh, what is this? And then you won't be able to smell it. Oh, I guess things are better. And then you die because it's also a toxin. And when the oceans are dead, okay, you don't have fish, you don't have whale meat, you don't have seal meat, all the things that we love to have, and the oceans are dead. You can't even live near the ocean because of global heating. So what it's going to do to your feedlots, it's going to do to your oceans, and it's all global heating. And if you wanted, let's just say, you're one of those people, and you've been fantasizing about, obsessing about everyone being dead. Why would you do that? I don't know. Everyone needs a hobby, right? So you've been obsessing and fantasizing about everyone being dead. Okay. Watch out. You might be getting what you hoped for. In your darkest days, when you thought everyone hated you and everyone was a troll and everyone was mean and they're all bad people and they all going to die and they all ate meat and they're all full of shit and they all should die. Well, okay. Good on you. Because we're there. Because of global heating. But before that, you're going to run out of food. And the first food you're going to run out of is going to be meat. Dairy and eggs and cheese, which come from the same animals. Our domesticated animals are not going to survive this. They will be the first thing to go. The first thing to go. Because their lives are already living hells. They're already being injected with antibiotics, constantly are fed antibiotics in their food just to keep them alive. And when the heat comes, that's it. Dead. Burned. In piles, like it's plague-ridden Europe. And on that day, you'll become vegan. You won't even know it. Now, there are going to be interruptions to the food supply. Period. Straight up. Count on it. It may not be apocalyptic. It may not be a huge deal, but it's going to be something. There's going to be interruptions in the food supply. These are early days. We'll get a little taste of it. We'll get a little taste of the interruptions, and then they'll go away, and we'll go, whew, that was a close call. That Cougar guy, he's full of shit. He said this was the end times. Okay, Fair enough. You're going to get a test, and then the test is going to go away, and then you're going to be tested a little more, and then that will go away, and then there's going to be a big test, and then that will not go away. You see, it ratchets up. And one of those days, you're going to become vegan. Now, if you're smart, you do that now. You do that right now. And then you go into your backyard if you have one. If you don't have a backyard, then you have my sympathies. It's been nice knowing you. Okay? Find some dirt. Find your dirt in your backyard. Pull up the ornamental bush. Pull up the sod. Fill the swimming pool with dirt. Whatever you have to do. And start planting food. Start planting food. Yeah. Not because you're a hippie, long hair, all this kind of shit. You're planting food. Why? Because you're going to eat it. You're going to eat that shit. That's the shortest supply chain. No delivery trucks involved. No fossil fuels required. What do? You take your colander, you go into the backyard, you pick a bunch of sugar pod peas, and you hack off a bunch of kale, and you finally harvest that that squash that you've been eyeballing, hoping it's going to get a little bigger, and you just slice that thing off, and you go in the house and you make a fantastic meal right from your own backyard. Now, can you do that every day? Yeah, maybe not, but on that faithful day when you become vegan and you're looking at the supermarket store shelves and you're thinking, this is ominous. And people are standing around with their arms crossed. Oh, some of them are yelling at the butcher, who has nothing to do. And some of them are yelling at the grocer, who's trying to put things on the shelf. And some of them are really pissed and all red-faced and they're angry. But what they are is they're terrified. Yeah? Yeah, they're scared. They're not worried about the hellscape where those animals were raised and slaughtered. They're not worried about the environmental harm. They're not worried about their arteries, right? They're not worried about any of that shit. That's all hippie bullshit, right? That's all woke nonsense. No, they're not worried about that. They're looking at the shelves. And what are the shelves? The shelves are fucking empty. That's right. Empty. But you don't have that problem. And you walk out of the store, good luck everybody, and you go home and you look at your garden and you look at the peas and the beans and the bush beans and you look at the tomatoes on the vine and you're thinking, well, all right, I've got my wheat berries in my screw top millennial containers, and I can make flour, and from flour I can make pasta, and I can make my own pasta. You just roll it out in a sheet, and you can cut it up with a knife if you want to, or you can have a pasta maker, a little pasta machine. They have a little crank on it, cranks out the pasta for you. Fresh pasta, nothing beats it. Period. Hands down, nothing beats fresh pasta, and it comes from your own flour, from your own mill, from your own wheat berries that you bought in advance, because you're vegan. And then you have your own tomatoes and your own basil, right? You have to have an herb garden, so you have basil and oregano and whatever else you want, rosemary, and you chop all fresh herbs, and you chop it all up, and you chop those tomatoes, you throw them in the blender, and you get a nice sauce, and you cook that on the stovetop, and you watch that cook, and you're thinking, I got my fresh pasta over here, and I got my fresh spaghetti sauce, my fresh pasta sauce. And yesterday I made some fresh bread with my bread machine, and I got fresh garlic from my garden, and I'm going to crush some garlic, and I got some vegan butter. Yeah, okay, that had to be transported. I got some vegan butter, which tastes just like butter. Sorry, and I'm going to make garlic bread, and so I'm going to have this great pasta meal with garlic bread, and I'm going to roast this squash. I'm going to have squash on the side, and this is going to be absolutely, fundamentally a win. And while you're sitting there eating all this stuff, you're reflecting. Oh, even while you're cooking it, because you're cooking it, because you got it. You've got the food. It's right here. Some of it came from your backyard, and you're sitting here cooking the food, and you're thinking about those people shouting themselves red in the face because they're fucking terrified. And what would you tell them? If you could go back there, what would you tell them? You would tell them what I'm telling you right now. Don't be that person standing in the empty aisles, your face red as a beet, screaming at everybody who's nearby, not even knowing why you're doing it, except that you're terrified. You're frightened. Don't be that person. Global heating is real. It's going to slaughter the herds. It's going to kill them everywhere. And whatever is left will be left for the elites. and they'll pay $500 a pound for their steaks, and they won't give a fuck, right? They won't care. And that's the last steak you'll ever have, because they're $500 a pound. And they come from Finland or something, and no one even knows where they come from, but these people don't care. If they want a steak, they'll pay $500 for it. They won't even think about what the cost is or where it came from. They'll have the private jet. This is how they do shit. They'll have their private jet go to the last remaining feedlot in Finland and come back with 50 pounds of steaks to last them a month. The private jet, with their own fuel, going to their own airport in Finland to come back with 50 pounds of steaks at $500 a pound. They won't care. You won't have it. You will have whatever's growing in your garden, whatever you've got stored up, and whatever you can make for yourself, including if you have a mill to grind wheat berries into flour, you can make bread, pasta, shepherd's pies, crust, right? For shepherd's pies, nothing better than a shepherd's pie. Or a pot pie. We call them pot pies, right? It's a little pie crust, and you fill it full of vegetables and whatever. I think sometimes they put chicken in it, but hey, you can put tofu if you want to. If you want something crunchy, put some braised tofu in it. Oh, hey, you can make your own tofu. Did you know this? Yeah, we do this all the time around here. We have soybeans, and we have a soy milk maker. It's a Soy Joy. It's a Soy Joy G5, and you put in a scoop of berries, soybeans, and you fill it to a level. You put the lid on, and you walk away, and it makes soy milk. And you can drink the soy milk if you want to. It tastes really good. Or you can turn around and make tofu out of it. Then there's a way to make tofu. You can just do it in your kitchen and have your own tofu. It tastes amazing. Oh my God, it tastes so good. It just tastes good. You just want to eat it with a spoon. It just tastes good. I know you can't believe that, but it tastes so good. And so you cut it up and you put it in your pot pie, and you cook your pot pie in the oven, and you made a pot pie. Probably out of vegetables from your garden and soybeans that you keep in a big bucket, and you make your own soy milk from which you make your own tofu. We go down to the market down here. Now, this is, of course, delivered, but I just want to point it out since we're talking about food. We get the vegan sausages. Looks just like a regular sausage. Tastes amazing. And we have bangers and mash and sauerkraut. Make my own mashed potatoes out of fresh potatoes. Wife makes her own sauerkraut out of cabbage. Yeah, that's a thing. She makes great sauerkraut. People love her sauerkraut. And we have bangers and mash and sauerkraut. It's an amazing meal. Absolutely amazing. No compromises of any kind. Everyone loves it. Everyone wants to have our bangers and mash. And then, if you have a source of oyster mushrooms, which you can grow yourself, by the way, in these special conditions, they don't like the heat, but you can grow your own oyster mushrooms, or you can get them at the farmer's market. You take oyster mushrooms, lightly salted, maybe a little bit of pepper, just like you kind of would meat, and then you cut them thin. They come in a big clump. It looks a little bit like a cauliflower. So you cut them thin, and you grill them. We have a big Farber grill, I think is what it is. It's electric. We do everything electric around here. You grill those oyster mushrooms on that grill with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, something like that, and they come out, and it's just like eating chicken. And there's a reason for that, by the way. Funguses, mushrooms, if you rather, are more related to animals than they are to plants. And when you cook them, they taste like animal meat, because that's kind of where they're from. They're not like plants. They're more like animal. And when you grill them, they taste like, well, the oyster mushrooms taste like chicken. Absolutely delicious. And do whatever with them you do with chicken. Put them on cut them up, put them on a salad, put them between two pieces of bread with lettuce, and just eat them like you're eating a chicken sandwich. It absolutely 100% of the time works. It gives you the texture, the flavor, the smell. Even the smell is like you're cooking chicken, because you're cooking meat. And nobody understands that. You can get ahead of this by figuring all this out. I cook all this stuff. I do a lot of the cooking in here. And I'm really creative, and I kind of know what works. And we make amazing meals. And they're amazing meals, and I make them the way I want them because I want to eat them. I want to eat them. And we're vegan. And the food we have is no compromise. There's no compromise of any kind. For texture, for flavor, for smell, for everything. Everything that you want out of a meal, you can get from a correctly prepared vegan meal. And we go to restaurants, and because it's California, because we're so woke and we're all fags and soy boys, okay, whatever you want to say about California, we go to the restaurants and there's always a vegan option. And you get the vegan option and there's no meat, there's no cheese, there's no sour cream, nothing. And it's absolutely delicious. Because it's the spices and the care that goes into it and the fact that someone made it for you and they bring it to you on a plate and you sit down and you eat it and you're with your friends, you're with your family, you're with a crowd and you have a wonderful sit-down meal and it's all vegan and there's no animals in it and no compromise. It can't be done. And you're going to have to do it. Because one of these days, maybe next week, the shelves will be empty. They'll be empty of meat first. And on that day, by and large, you'll either be vegetarian, which means no meat, or you might even be vegan, which includes no dairy and no eggs. I mentioned the traditional reasons for doing this, and I just gave you another reason based on the laws of physics. You're going to do this. You'll pitch a fit, you'll stamp your feet, you'll turn red in the face. Hopefully you don't have a heart attack from your atherosclerosis of the arteries. But anyway, you're going to turn red in the face, you're going to scream at everybody, you're going to kick the dog, and then you're going to settle down and you're going to say, well, he was right. Cougar did say it. He did warn us. Now I have to man up or woman up, and I have to say things are different. They were going to have to be different. It was going to be different someday, and now they're different. So this is the day. It's not all bad. My book, It Was 100 Days, an End of Civilization novel, is also an end of oil novel. The link to the book is in the description. It talks about how people turn the corner. Basically, in 100 days of deprivation, they turn the corner. And they all become gardeners. Okay, spoiler alerts. Not really. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? There's no cows. There's no feedlot. There's no slaughterhouse. There's no air-conditioned container trucks backing up to their village and disgorging 50 pounds of steaks from Finland. What are they going to do? They become vegan. And in all likelihood, if I were to continue writing the book and continue exploring their lives after 100 days and go on to 100 times 100 days, which is sort of the last line in the book, yeah, it takes 27 years, just doing the math for you. 27 years later, they're probably still vegan. Maybe they've discovered chickens. Maybe they've figured something out. Maybe they have eggs. I don't know. Probably not. No, because that wasn't their life before. Yeah, 27 years later, 100 days, 100 times, they're still vegan. Because it works, folks. It works. You can eat. You can have food. You can have a sit-down meal with your friends. You can all cook the food together. Rice, beans, tomatoes. You got wheat. You got me. I have a whole field full of wheat. And you go out there with your scythes and you harvest the wheat and you take it to the threshing floor and you thresh the wheat. And then you scoop it up and you put it in the silos. You distribute it to the families. And now somebody's got a mill and somehow they have stones for a mill and they grind the wheat and they make the flour. And then someone makes the pasta and they hand the pasta around. Someone bakes the bread and they hand the bread around. And then there's a meal and there's pasta and there's bread and there's garlic bread and there's a great salad that came from a garden and there's tomato sauce. And you do all this shit. It's all vegan. It's all made by hand. The whole story is made by hand. And after 100 days, you're really, really happy. You're really happy, even 30 days into it, that you could pull together a meal with your friends and neighbors. You're so happy. And you're vegan. But you're vegan. You didn't think about that. You didn't want to be that. You thought that was a sin, and communism and socialism and woke and Marxism, and it's all a scam and it's all a hustle and it's all just trying to pickpocket you, and now you're vegan. Because otherwise you're not going to eat, my friend. You're eating. and you're sharing meals, and you're laughing, and you're having a great time. You had a hard day at work, but you're safe, and you're fed, and you're vegan. So that's what I have. Did I make my fucking point? You don't have to be a hippie and a long hair and woke and a soy boy and all that other shit to realize that, excuse me, I do need to eat. And when you go to the store and the racks where the beef is supposed to be is empty and there's no chicken and there's no frozen foods and there's no chicken tenders and the grocer says, I don't know when I'm going to get some, I want you to remember this diatribe on my part. I want you to remember this. It won't do you any good to shout and scream. Because it's done. And when the heat wave comes and it kills all the animals, maybe there'll be a little blurb on the news, 5 seconds of talking about the dead animals and moving on back to sports, all right? I want you to remember this discussion. I want you to remember what I said. Because it's over. When the herds have died in a heat wave or there was no diesel to deliver the products and the products had to be thrown away and burned and all this stuff happened, I want you to remember. That's it. That's the future. That's your future. That's my future. Well, that's my present. Really. And I meant what I said when I said you should have a garden. And if all you can do is container gardening, right, to plastic pails that you're trying to grow something in, do it, because you'll be acquiring skills on how to do this and on how not to do it, because some things will fail. And then encourage your neighbors to do the same thing and have a little club where you're gardening together and go into each other's backyards and garden and share the gardening and share the tips. Do this. Make community around this. And then one day, maybe next week, I don't know. Okay, I just don't know. This next week, next year, this summer, at some point, when you come home from the store and there's no meat on the shelves and not too much of anything else and the grocer says we haven't had a food delivery in 5 days, I want you to remember this conversation. I don't want you red-faced, stamping your feet like a toddler who's been deprived of his binky, okay? I want you to stand there in the aisles, white-faced if you have to be, terrified if you have to be terrified, be frightened, and then go home and make a meal, a vegan meal. Because you want to eat and share it with your neighbor. Because they're also terrified and they don't know what to do. And you go next door and you knock on the door. Hey, I just made pasta, fresh pasta from my own flour, and I picked some tomatoes. Why don't you come over here and let's have a meal together? And then you make the pasta sauce and you garnish the meal and you grill the bread that you made the day before, right? And you sit down with your neighbor and you have a nice meal and you talk about what just happened. What just happened? I was in the market today. Man, the shelves are bare. I don't know what to do. We're doing it right now. You and I, we're doing it. Yeah, I was frightened too. I saw it. And as soon as I saw it, I thought about you. And as soon as I saw it, I knew I had to come to your house and knock on the door and share a meal. And you've turned the corner. Yeah, you're vegan. You're not vegan for moral reasons, although those are good reasons. You're not vegan to save the environment, although that's a good reason. You're vegan because you don't want to starve to death. There's nothing on the shelves. But because you took this seriously, and I was able to frighten you into taking it seriously, you went in your backyard tomorrow and planted tomatoes and herb seeds in containers so that you could make a meal and invite your neighbor over to share a meal and be terrified together. And that's what my book is about. Being terrified together. Buy the book. It's available on Amazon. Link is in the description. When you do, I'd appreciate a 5-star review. 5 stars. Okay, let's do this the right way. Comments in the live chat. Good video, thank you. You must know Environmental Coffee House and Paul Beckwith. I do know Environmental Coffee House and Paul Beckwith. I watch them occasionally. I don't watch Environmental Coffee House much because I think that Sandy is a bit kind of over the top, and I just don't have patience for that. She does a good job, but I don't have patience for it. Paul Beckwith does a good job, but he's not nearly alarmist enough. But that's okay. He doesn't have to be. You want to get alarmed? You want to be terrified? You want to piss yourself? I'm here, okay? That's what I do. Act now. Go vegan. Cool topic. Thanks. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. If you're new to the channel, do subscribe and leave a like. Buy the book. Oh, God, please, buy the book. Read the book. It's scary. The book is scary, but in the end, they sit down and have a meal together. That's the point of all this. That's the point of me being here. That's the point of me saying what I've just said. And the last video, too. Go watch the last video. All right? Much more technical take on the same topic. We have to do this. We have to do this together. We have to figure this out. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to focus you on the next step. I'm trying to focus you on turning the corner. Please, turn the corner. Take this shit seriously. It's getting serious. It's going to get more serious with every passing year. And it's going to take you time to figure this out. It's going to take you time to just evolve your own thinking. Just be able to turn a corner and say, I'm going to do this differently. It's going to take time. It's going to take time to break habits. It's going to take time to convince your family, right? They're not on board. It's going to take time to convince yourself. It's going to take time for you to establish your garden, establish yourself as a gardener, to buy the book. You don't need 50 books. You need one book. Buy the book. Rent the book from the library. You don't have to even buy it. Just rent it and read it, okay? And then it's going to take you time to establish your garden. And then it's going to take you time to establish gardening with your neighbor. And then it's going to take you time to figure out how to use the things in your garden to make meals. And then it's going to take you time to make meals and figure out recipes and figure out what works and figure out what you like. And to provide providers and discover your farmer's market. It's going to take time. And then you go to the farmer's market and you ask them, how do I prepare these mushrooms? And they say, hey, do this and that. And then you buy the mushrooms, you bring it back home and you do this and you do that. And you eat it and you're like, wow, I just learned something. It's going to take time. And you don't want to start when you're that person standing in the aisles of the supermarket and the beef is empty and there's no pork. There's only a tiny bit of chicken. And even the chicken is like 5 times what it used to cost. And a lot of the other prepared foods are gone, and the dairy is only half there. And you're standing there, and your face is turning white. Because it happened. That is not the time to try and turn the corner. The time to try and turn the corner is now, right now, tomorrow, this afternoon. Figure it out. Go on YouTube and look for great vegan meals. Not because they're woke, and not because they're perfect, and not because they're sacred, and not because they're closer to God. Because they're made without meat. And that's the goal here, folks. We're not doing it because we want to be better people, although you'll be a better person. You might even be healthier. And you'll help the environment, and you'll help the animals, and eventually the animals don't have to be this way. That whole industry goes away. But even if you're not doing it for those reasons, do it so that you can feed yourself. Is this not obvious? You need to feed yourself. You need to be able to do that. And, wow, in the process, maybe feed others. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? On the day when the shelves are empty, you invite your neighbor over. They've been gardening. You've been gardening. You fix a nice meal and you eat it together. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be grand? Wouldn't that be perfect? Yeah, it will be. When that day comes. As it must. All right, I've done enough. Thank you for putting up with me yelling at you. If you're scared, good. But I want you to use the fear as a motivator. Get out there and do the right thing for yourself and the environment and the animals and the hellscape and the everything else. But do it for yourself. Let that be your motivation. And maybe do it for your neighbor. Invite them over for a meal and tell them, hey, guess what? This is a vegan meal. And every ingredient in here, I made myself. Starting with the flour. Don't die.